What's up, Shred Sexies? Welcome back. Death to the Fingers. I finally got her done. Of course I did. Took a while though, but we're going to go through it right now. Essentially, I sat down and I was like, okay, I need to come up with a chord progression. So I did that. I kind of worked on this basic stuff. We're going to go over it in a second here, but you can see the MIDI information. And what I did was I took this and I copied it over like that. Okay. And when I did that, I can now open this, and if I just change the view back to the piano roll and scroll out here, I can select whole parts here like this, right? And just delete it. So I only want this top little part here. I'm like, I don't even want this note. I just want this little section here of this entire piece that I just did, because I'm going to use that to layer some sort of VST instrument over, whether I'm using the same one, this Omnisphere here, or you can basically add any instrument that you happen to have, right? So I have quite a few. Obviously, they're incredibly cheap for the most part, like Omnisphere is not, but overall, they're pretty inexpensive to get some pretty decent synths. And so the point being here is this kind of gets to the heart of stuff. This right here is just the harmonic structure, if you will, of the entire song, right? So you heard it at the intro, and the point being here is I took that and I started to break it up into pieces, right? And you can kind of see, I'll zoom in here a bit more. You can kind of see what I'm doing here, and even though it's messy as hell once you get over here, I'd have to spread it out a bit more, but the point being is this alto part here, you can see there's the triads. And then when I have this, in this case, this note doubling up, okay, it's two separate entities. You see that? It's sort of got like this big space between it. And my point being here is if I went down and I get rid of this one here, we don't need it. That was just an example, but I look at this one, this is the bass. Notice where it is. It's way down here in the bass clef. So I broke all those notes out and I put them down here as their own separate MIDI file right there. Now, the track that it's sitting on is just like a placing track. You know, it's just a dummy track. So when I want to do something with the bass, I'll just take this and move it down and just take the bass one and move it up and just use this one track to control all the synthesizers, because I'm basically going to again render them, okay, which is usually a function you'll have on here's mine. I use the F keys. You're going to render them out either as a stereo track for like most synthy stuff, or if you're doing a bass, it might be mono, right? And there it is. And then of course when I do that, I then build up like this little archive of sounds here. So you can see I have two separate piano sounds, and I've turned one down quite a bit by like minus 10 dB to create the piano sound all together. It's not just one sound, it's two sounds together. And then I'm still affecting it, right? Like on this one, I'm using this saturation, the Big Al, great plugin. And on this one, I'm doing a low end cut at 200 Hertz. Right, so that helps me balance out the sounds and make the piano sound, you know, decent or whatever it is for right now. Then I had an atmospheric track, again, using all the same information here. This one. Okay, if I pull this down and I put this back up, all those tracks I'm talking about here, these blue ones and the orange ones, all of these, that's all this information right here. The same one over and over and over again that I just basically keep layering on top of each other. And I wanted to do that on purpose to keep it kind of relatively simple. And then I just blend them together, right? And the thing is I'm actually sort of, you know, even at source, turning the volume down comparably, right? Like I wanted the pianos to be the loudest. Look at how big those waveforms are. Whoops, comparably to this one over here, right? Same thing with the bass. There's the bass guitar sound, but then there's the sort of synthy sound. Like it's way louder than the sort of the human voices kind of situation, and I have that layered in with this other atmospheric effect. So that's another, you know, heads up. Notice that these are relative in sound. The size of the waveform itself are basically relative. They're not, one's a big one and one's a small one. Now listen, that can happen for sure. There are no rules. But, you know, generally speaking, if you're looking to balance your mix, and of course I'm setting them up to the bass track, you know, and I just kind of did a really super fast bass mix, but it goes to its own track where I sum them all up, and then I can use this channel strip here to basically do something with it. And then I have parallel tracks over here I can use to make it sound even better. But those are all the sort of essential elements where I have the two piano tracks basically doing 75% of the work, right? For the sound, the melodies, or I should say the harmony section, right? And then I'm supplementing those here with these human voices and the atmospheric track. And of course, you have the bass guitar. We've already gone through the drums and everything like that, which is right here. They all basically go up to these top three tracks. And of course, I just have the drums turned on a bit more. And that's really all there is to it, to the video. So the key here to take away is if you didn't understand that because I just did it at lightning speed, is because I spent an hour talking about this stuff already. You have to break your song up into regions. In this case, this is the bass region, right? So when I double click on this MIDI information, you can see it's all down here in the bass clef. If you were looking at it from a note perspective, and if you were listening to it, you know, using the keyboard, it's way down here in the lower ends, right? Where it's quite low, obviously. So that's its own thing. And then I do two separate things to it. In one case, I have like this synth bass arpeggio. And in the other one, I have like this VST bass instrument from Ample or something like that. It's free. It's awesome. And the pianos that came from Garriton, that's one I own. It's a personal orchestra, I think it is. Maybe 4 or 5. It's a great piece of software. Killer company. Definitely recommend it. This is Atmos, basically. Oh, I don't have it on right now. Sorry. Another free one. I can't remember what the name of the company is on that one. And these ones came from basically Omnisphere. So that's basically the lesson is break your stuff up. And then of course I was like, if I just have this piano line and the bass line with the drums, it sounds pretty austere, you know what I mean? Like it didn't sound full. So that's when I knew I had to pad it with a couple more things. And I'm like, why don't I, first I just had the one, right? This one right here. And then of course I was just like, and then of course I threw on the voices and I thought, yeah, okay, that balances that enough. So that's the whole point, is you come up with chord progression, right? Lay down your drum track, basically sit down, come up with a chord progression. In this case, this one here. And you can see it's really nice to work in Reaper. They basically give you the sections labeled and whatnot. They'll show you the chord progression if you want to see it as notes, or on the piano roll. They have other ones here. There's some name notes, I think. This is one of those pads. I don't use that stuff. So I use basically this one and, of course, the piano roll the most. But, of course, you can see me doing triads here and just combinations, too. We talked about the theory. There's C major, right? Of course, E minor. The next third up, but also basically part of C major 7. And then I'm up at G major there, but with the B in the bass, right? So it's again, the same principles we talked about in the previous 2 videos. And of course, I'm sneaking in this D major. Yeah, crazy, the Lydian sound. So, and of course, recycling this F sharp here to basically allow me to get back down to use G major now as the key. So I start off kind of like in C major and use D major, it's Lydian mode, to pivot to go into G major, to go from the 1 chord C to pivot to its 5 chord G and make that now the 1 chord via this D major chord. If you understood what I said there, you are absolutely monster. Right, and then of course I just do little sort of variations here. It's just me using the same sort of motifs over and over. But again, notice this tenor range where I start to sneak stuff out. I don't know if I can actually zoom in. Yeah, I can. You see down here, like even comparably to up here where there's nothing, I start to just have nothing, but then I start adding in this new voicing with breaking up this triad now to take this note and put it way down further in the register. Now, this is something we do on the guitar all the time. These spread chords are absolutely essential, and you see me doing the same thing, and so are these triads. So, you know, it may look like it's on the piano, but I'm basically simulating the exact same moves you would be making on a guitar that I've watched dozens of guitar players do it. You have to do it yourself, you see, to sort of like really get into it. So that's my point. You see me essentially moving the bass and the tenor notes again, doing an interval in the tenor range and then doing a triad in the alto range, right? And of course, I see the soprano range is just going to be the sort of improvisations, melodies, and whatever else I'm going to throw on top there, little sort of harmonized parts or fills or something like that. So these sort of are like chord movements, me moving from this chord, wanting to get to this one, and then just adding these other little chords here to basically facilitate that transition. That's why it looks more busy here. Okay, and same thing over here. I'm basically essentially using these two chords or this one chord to set it up, right? So I'm moving from this chord to this one so I can move to this chord so I can hold it, because this is the sound I want to sort of end on before getting to my next part. And of course, just keep doing the same process over and over and over again until I end. Right. So that's, you know, it looks weird or alien when people start looking at it, but honestly, you're like, I'm moving from this one chord to this chord over here. And when you see stuff like this, that's a cadence in most cases, right? So that's the basics of music, and it's nothing to be intimidated by, because when you start to see this, you're like, okay, I'm starting on this chord and I want to get to this chord. It doesn't matter what the chord is. It's the chord that you can actually play and think about. And you're like, I can fill it in there, you know, with this new one. So it kind of goes ba ba ba. See how it goes from here up and then back down. The first note there. Basic music, right? Don't think of it as theory. It's just how music works. People like to hear this movement of notes. It's predictable to a certain degree, but if you fill in these other notes with more sophisticated harmony, then it becomes way less predictable. So I'll leave it at that. So expand your minds. Essentially start laying out some stuff using triads, using bass notes, and breaking them up using the tenor, the bass, and the alto region. Of course, the alto region, I like to do all my triads or interval work, right, to sort of carry the sort of predominant melody that I'm going to start to solo over top of. And we'll play again at the very end the track one more time now that I've kind of explained it. And, you know, you can sort of maybe just look at this. I'll just leave it like that. And you can just basically sort of follow along and see each time I play the chord, right? And you'll be like, okay, I'm starting to understand. Now, this is just the main melody part, but all the same, it's definitely worth starting to understand, to see these movements of notes equate to actual movements of chords on the actual guitar, because then you can start to visualize it yourself. Whether you understand the notes right away or not, or how to read music, is irrelevant. Just the idea that it's broken up into two chunks, right? Oh, this one's 4. Oh, there's another 2. There's 4 again. Just absorbing that basic information is essential to sort of development as a really serious musician. So I'm just throwing it out there. Right. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate every single one of you. I wish you all the best, of course, and we're going to get into some new and juicy stuff. So stick around. We'll see you in the next one.